Welcome back. This is our in-depth coverage of Budget 2013. The Finance Minister today chalked out a well-defined roadmap to achieve the fiscal deficit targets, but he did not quite fulfill the growth promise. How is corporate India reacting to Budget 2013? Here's my colleague Shireen Bhan in conversation with top industry leaders.
Well, as we told you right here on CNBC TV 18, the mood was not for a flashy budget. The mood was not for more subsidies. And that's exactly what Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has done. As we told you right here, there would be focus on women and the youth. There is going to be an All India Women's Bank that will be inaugurated in October. And there has been a surcharge on the superrich. All of that is what we broke right here on CNBC TV 18 to discuss the findings. Joining me here at the Confederation of Indian Industry are leaders of India Inc., Adi Godrej, President of CII. Let me ask you your thoughts on the budget. It's a realistic, practical budget, but perhaps falls short on the levers to really push investment, to really push growth. It has managed to at least deliver on the numbers for fiscal consolidation. Whether the math will add up or not, it's a separate story, but he's delivered on the promise, but not enough by way of levers to generate growth and jumpstart the economy, you think?
No, I think it is a growth-oriented budget. I think some of the emphasis on development is strong. Of course, the emphasis on inclusiveness is also strong. I like the emphasis on agriculture, especially technological inputs into agriculture, science and technology, space. So I think the emphasis on the expenditure side was the right one. And I think the fact that he wants to make sure that the subsidies by the end of the UPA term are clearly given on the Aadhaar.
So for FY14, subsidies being pegged at about 2% of GDP.
I think now we have to see the detailed numbers, because what is very good is if we can make these inclusiveness and development oriented expenditures and yet keep the deficit at 4.8%. I think that's very good news. We have to see how he will manage that, probably with a considerable reduction in the subsidies, and perhaps a large amount
there doesn't seem to be a significant reduction in subsidies. Of course, over the year, there is, as far as petrol subsidies are concerned, being pegged at about 65,000 crore rupees. For fertilizer, 65,971 crore rupees. Food subsidy at 90,000 crore rupees.
What is the disinvestment?
The disinvestment target is 40,000 crore rupees. Spectrum auction, once again, 40,000 crore rupees, which, of course, for even this year, he's fallen short. Disinvestment,
but he can
more or less
make it up in disinvestment if he wishes to. If you start disinvestment in April, you can make it up. But overall, I would say that it's a welcome budget. It will be growth oriented. And I think the announcement on GST was very important, because if GST can come sometime during the next financial year, that itself will add to growth and also revenue.
Sunil Munjal, as far as the GST is concerned, he has made a first installment budgeted 9,000 crore rupees, saying that this is my way of getting the states to come on board. Do you actually see GST being a reality? Do you think that by the winter session, perhaps, we can see him bring in the constitutional amendment bill and the GST bill?
Actually, in the last 8 to 10 weeks, as you know, there have been a series of meetings between the states, the empowered committee, and the finance ministry and the finance minister. The general mood and movement seems to be good. I'm hoping it will happen before the end of the next fiscal, actually, which is what he's indicating. That's why he's putting 9,000 crores out there. If it does, it has a very good multiplier effect, both on growth and on revenues.
But let's be realistic. This is a government going into an election. This is a government trying to convince state governments, where a whole host of them, it's not Congress-led. Do you really believe that state governments are going to want to hand them the GST on a platter in this fashion? Yeah,
I think the state governments will not hand it to the center. I think the state governments will get what they want out of it and then accept it. So I think it's going to be good for both sides. They may end up putting out more money than they had planned, but I think it will work.
Rajiv Mamani, as far as the tax is concerned, royalty, we've actually seen the taxes go up. Excise, as was the expectation, nothing has been done. Customs, not much has actually changed there. He's done what everyone was fearing he would do, the tax on the super rich in the form of a 10% surcharge. I think 10% is not something that people were expecting. They were expecting at least 5%, 10%. Perhaps more than what was being anticipated?
Yeah, I think perhaps more than what was anticipated. I'll just take 30 seconds on GST. But my personal view was I was probably expecting a more emphatic statement. I think there was a huge request that he made, and I think the CST allocation is something that he owes to the state. All he's saying is that I've allocated 9,000 crores in the budget. I'm coming to the table, you please come to the table. And I personally think it's a good time for non-Congress states also to come, because now it can only be effective from 2014. So if any other party was also to form the government, I think everyone's got to benefit from this. So in some ways, this is the most least controversial year to do it. But on the taxes side, you're absolutely right. I think the biggest benefit was on investment allowance. I think he has tried to plug in some on the royalty. In most of the tax treaties, there's a rate of 15%.
Yeah.
But the rate in the Income Tax Act was actually 10%, which is lower than 15%. So he has increased that.
So it'll actually go up by 5%.
It will, in most countries, it will actually go up by 5% and not by 15%. I think they've also plugged in share buyback and all the other things to some extent, which some of the companies were doing. But I think the surcharge, both it's not only on super rich but also on companies, the surcharge is increased. So effectively your tax rate has gone up by roughly 1.5%. On DDT it has gone up. It will also apply, I think it will also apply on MAT and other things. So in some ways there has been an effective increase of tax rate, and you're right, on surcharge for super rich one was anticipating 5%. I think 10% seems to be on the higher side. But the best news is what he has done on the saving side plus what he has done on investment allowance, I think.
Bringing the investment allowance back up to 7 years.
Yeah, because that will be in about, if you look at 15 crores, 15%, that means almost 5 crores for every 100 crores spent. So if a company is earning that kind of, so you're getting a 5% relief on the investments that you're making.
I'll get to the super rich tax in just a bit, but Mr. Sandalia, as far as the auto sector is concerned, excise stays. The tax on SUVs has gone up from 27% to 30%. Some exemptions are being continued as far as electric vehicles are concerned. But on imported vehicles, and that's where we actually need clarity. While on the bike side, it's very clear engines over 800cc will be taxed higher. What are you picking up as far as the clarity on the imported vehicles are concerned?
So actually, you said that imported CBUs will be taxed. And the increase in tax has been announced from 75 to 100%. To some extent, the auto industry has always been saying that the imported vehicle duty should be kept or increased as far as custom duty is concerned, because we want to promote manufacturing in the country. From that point of view, I think it's a welcome move from the auto industry perspective that it will improve manufacturing. People will not get CBUs in, but it doesn't stop people getting NCKD packs and assembling in the country.
Yeah,
and therefore,
but a big negative as far as SUV makers are concerned.
Yes, as far as SUV excise duty is concerned, it is totally unexpected. From 27 to 30% is an increase which is unanticipated. We need to go to the fine print to find out which are the vehicles which are actually impacted. But I'm happy that he has not distinguished between diesel and petrol, though most of the SUVs are diesel, but still not made a distinction from a fuel perspective. But the increase itself is not necessarily a welcome move. We need to find out.
The positive, though, is in the JNURM, which the continuation there and the focus
not
on
only
buses.
Continuation, doubling the investment, the allocation to JNURM is very good. We should implement them. I think the problem with us is implementation. Even the last JNURM scheme, the money has not been paid to the state transport undertakings. That overall expanding it and making it available is a good move from the auto industry perspective. From buses, commercial vehicles will definitely improve that.
All right, that's how India Inc. has reacted to the budget this time around. But what about the foreign investment community? We'll take a break and come back and tell you what investors have read into the budget this time around and how they're going to be approaching the market. Stay tuned.